Welcome to episode 39 of Discourse in Magic with Asi Wind. Now, I have a funny feeling that this episode is going to get a few more listens than our regular episode, so I thought I would open it by telling you very quickly about what Discourse in Magic is all about. Discourse in Magic is a podcast all about how to make your magic better, except it's not about how the tricks work. There are enough people and places and resources, both online and offline, that are telling you where to put your pinky. We want to tell you where to put your brain. We don't talk about methods on this podcast. We talk about everything else that is mega important. Things like performance, things like theory, things like business, things that you need to know to be a better magician. So I hope that this is something that you care about. Whether you care about this podcast or not, that's up to you, but I hope that you care about the finer details of magic outside how the tricks work, because I think we all know that it's not just about a 17th way to do a double lift. There is so much more to magic, and we want to talk about the stuff that nobody's talking about. So in this episode, we sit down with Asi Wind and we talk about how to make your audience care about your show. And spoiler alert, it's by caring about your show yourself. It's by putting in the effort and putting in the oomph. I don't know if that's a real word, but oomph, like MMPHH, of caring about your show and caring about the things that you put in and the things that you say. And if you don't do that, how can you expect your audience to? So without further ado, I don't need to paraphrase what Asi said. You can just hear it right from him. So here it is, episode 39 of Discourse in Magic. And let me tell you, you're really gonna love it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with a very good friend and someone who has just been popping up everywhere in Magic, and for great reason, and that is the one and only Asi Wind. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing really well.
Excited to be talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to talk to you too.
So let's start off at the beginning. Which is where? Well, it depends on you. So it's where did you and how did you get into magic?
So it took 7 days. It was dark first, and then God created Genesis.
Right.
Okay, let's focus. What you're asking? What is the beginning of my career, or
how did you get into magic?
Yeah, how did magic come into your life?
You know, it's funny because I feel like my story is probably everyone's story. Shy kid, no friends, couldn't do anything else, wasn't good at sports, and magic rescued me. I think everybody's story is very similar. I was 13 years old, loved magic, did it, it really helped my social life and helped me communicate with people. And that's it. And I never really made a decision to become a magician. It started as a hobby. It's still a hobby. I just happen to make a living off of it.
Did you ever end up finding yourself in a different career or something that you left, or just slowly you've done more and more magic until it became your life?
No. Since I was 13 years old, I've never done anything. Never even toyed with the idea of dealing with the different profession. The only thing I could say is I have a huge hunger to learn things. Like I really love. I've studied art. I love to paint. I love to read. I love to cook. There's a lot of things that I like to do, but those became just hobby and interest. Where magic took the main stage, and that's the main focus of my life.
Cool. I'm with you. I've never done anything. I've never been paid to do anything that doesn't have magic in it. And
how old are you, by the way?
I'm 22.
Okay. All right. So, and when did you start?
I don't remember. I was never not doing
5,
magic. Yeah.
So since you can remember yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're adding up the numbers. Okay, so that seems like this is when.
No. It is. It is a number game at the end because I know that the conversation today is about how to structure a show, and it is really just the mileage. It's amazing what repetition in the numbers.
100%, and especially when you get like guided repetition. It's one thing for you to be practicing the same thing in your living room for 10 years and then finding out that you can't really perform it in front of real people, but doing shows and your repetition, you're also getting to know what works and what doesn't. So instead of you doing the same crappy thing for 10 years, it's getting better, and you're honing it.
Exactly. It's true.
So let's talk about maybe the starting positions of putting together a show. So I know that we saw a snippet of your old show. I know your recent one was just in London, but a snippet of your old show up at Sorcerer Safari, must have been 2 or 3 summers ago.
Yeah.
And it was just an incredible show. It was one of the most amazing magic shows I've ever seen, and just because there were so many different emotional moments, it really was a roller coaster. And that's one of these things where I'm really tired of magic shows where it's here's a trick, here's a trick, here's a trick, here's a trick, this is a trick, here's a big trick later, and I like when there's different lengths, there's different emotions, there's different tension, there's different different surprises happen. There's a lot of emotion in the game. It's not people in the audience being like, go ahead, Magic Man. They're engaged.
Yeah, it's not like,
and on
you
the
got
edge.
me with the last one, you won't get me with the next one. It's like, you're sitting there going, what is actually happening, and just genuinely caring about the next step.
So it's a loaded question with a lot of info, but how do you start? How do you start putting something together that isn't just standard?
So let me start by saying that I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to understand. By the way, it very well could be that if I've ever succeeded at creating a good show or had a good show, to some degree it's a fluke, because I might be hitting notes by accident that are good,
right?
And they resonate with people, and maybe move them and make them feel like it's magic. But the truth is, it's an ongoing research, and it's so hard. It's really, really hard. But if I try to dissect it, and I always do, and I try to dissect the things that worked in my show and the things that didn't work in my show, and why did they work and why they didn't work. So if I just start somewhere, I would say, the reason why you can have a magician do, I don't know, ABC magic, because he does this, this, and that. And another magician does exactly the same tricks, same order. One really gets to move a crowd, makes them feel like they're watching miracles or they feel something. And one, okay, it's a bunch of tricks. I don't know how it works. You fooled me. Great. So if I had to compare it to something, it's almost like I give you a box of tools. And there's a plier in there and maybe a vice grip and a hammer and this and that. All really great tools. They will do the job. They're very sturdy. They would last you a lifetime. They're really good tools. However, one can build, a beautiful tower or palace, and one can build a little shed in the backyard, and it's about to break. Because one really uses the tools to do something with it, to create something great with it, and somebody uses the tools to build something that's just good enough or barely works or whatever. So if we looked at, let's say, the ambitious card, which everybody agrees it's one of the greatest plots or tricks in card magic, and it could be looked as a tool. You can do that trick to create a moment. So how do you make the moment? Now that's a different question. But first you have to understand that ambitious card in the hands of, let's say, David Blaine is not the same as in the hands of another, somebody who just learned it and doesn't really dedicate enough time to learn what to do with it. I've seen Blaine kill, but murder with ambitious card. Now, it's not because ambitious card is great. It is great, but it's not because of that. It's because David knows how to deliver every second, every bit. And it's almost like music. You're playing a song. If we compare to songs, I'll teach you a song. Here are the notes. Here's the orchestration. This is how you play it.
Right.
One person can bring somebody to tears, and somebody can say, okay, this will be great as background music in an elevator.
Yeah. I think there's substance to the magic, right? The same way you can put soul into music or just play it note for note. When you craft your show, do you find sort of the purpose and the style and the soul, air quotes, I know you can't see, but the soul, do you put that in ahead of time, or do you sort of just perform the ABC magic until you sort of know what you want?
Again, you're asking amazing questions, but they're like book-long questions. It's probably 3.5 hours on each one of these questions. So
to simplify it,
I'll try to break it down to some nuggets of. And again, I'm 37. I've been doing magic for, let's say, 24 years now, and it's amazing. Like, as much mileage as I have behind me, I still feel like I just begun. I just started to scratch. I just started to understand a little bit about magic.
100%.
And if people, first of all, here's something that I see quite often. I see 19, 20 years old, which I consider young. And they talk as if they're like already mastered everything. And the moment you think you've mastered anything, magic or anything else, you basically stopped learning.
For sure.
If you're a master, you don't need to learn anything. Just, you're good. You're a master. So if you have this approach that I'm a student, I'm a beginner, I'm always going to be a beginner, I'm always going to be a student, I leave a lot of room for me to build up. I really am trying to do exactly what you guys are trying to do and every other magician is trying to do. I'm trying to understand more about myself, about magic, and it changes every day. So the one thing I can say, and this might change, I don't know if you talk to me in 2 weeks or in a year from now, maybe I'll say different things, but I think that sincerity, being sincere on stage, is a big ingredient in what makes a very good performer or a good performance. And I'll try to break it down. I see this a lot where people go on stage and they're going to performance mode, and you can feel it. It's like, magic, I'm going to do magic for you. So what is magic? And the things they choose to say don't really resonate with them. They don't really care about what they have to say. So, I don't know, like in my last show in Do You Want to Change Your Mind? It's a brand new show that's really I just started to figure it out. There's a lot of work to do on it. It's a very raw, show because again, it's very new. So talk to me in a year, maybe it will be a good show. But right now, it's a show that has a potential to be a great show, and that's good enough. So for example, the name of the show is Do You Want to Change Your Mind? And it was actually a friend of mine helped me come up with that name. And,
it's an awesome name.
Thank you. And I think it is a good name because let's start at the really beginning. I've given my show a name. What does it mean? Do I resonate with that name? Is it really related to me? And I tell you the story. So I'm calling, his name is Jonah, a really smart guy, used to be a magician, but very smart guy. I said, I really need a name for my show. Help me come up with a name. And we spoke for an hour, and then he said, give me a line that you say a lot in your show. And I said, I always say, and it's the first thing I said, do you want to change your mind? He says, that's it, that's the name of your show. And like, wow, this is great. And then I start saying it, when you say a word again and again and again, you start to realize that there's so much depth to it.
You can pick it apart.
Like if you say the word jealousy, correct? What does jealousy means? Keep saying jealousy. Then you start focusing and realizing that word is loaded. So do you want to change your mind? To us magicians, it means, do you want to take another card? but it actually means so much more. It delves into your confidence. You know, if you change your mind, maybe you're not certain, maybe you're indecisive, maybe you're vegan, maybe
Hey,
there's
right
something
here.
maybe there's something about you that is, you know, when you ask somebody, do you want to change your mind, it means way more than what it means on the surface. So again, it's all of those little things that, you know, if you tell me now, oh, there's two cards and you know the ace of spades is heavier because it has more ink on it. Do you as a performer buy into it? Do you really think it's interesting? Now, I'm not saying it's not. Maybe the guy who invented this plot, it was great for his character. He really he loved this plot so much about ink being, you know, having weight. I
Yeah.
don't care about it. I don't buy into it. Oh, really? Yeah, because there's more ink, it's heavier. I don't buy this bullshit. So I will not do it because I don't like it. But if I told you, you know, trying to think of something in my show, you know, I talk about from my old show you probably have not seen. It was about trust. The show was about trust. So at the beginning of the show, I borrowed someone's phone, made it disappear, and then I borrowed someone's credit card, made it disappear, then I make someone's watch disappear, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. And at some point I said, you know, isn't it amazing? This atmosphere makes people better. You guys came all the way here. You dressed really nice. You brought the people you love with you. You sat in the seat and you opened your hearts and minds to be entertained, to laugh, to accept. You opened your mind to listen to a stranger. You don't know me. And you trust me. For some strange... Look, I came to you at the beginning of the show and say, hey, give me your cell phone. You gave it to me. If I was a stranger on the street, you would never give me your phone.
Right.
I put it in a bag, I crushed it, it disappeared. Everybody was laughing, including yourself. You didn't ask for it back. You sit back. Everybody's happy. If somebody did it on the street, you'll go to the police, you'll chase him, maybe run, I don't know. But in the theater, I can do that. Here, and then I say, I'll give you an example. And I go to another guy and say, here, sir, give me your credit card. And they laugh. And he gives me his credit card. I said, look, I just made his phone. I never gave it to him back. You give me a credit card. And so forth and so. Anyway, this is just my script, okay? But when I wrote it, it was things that I related to. When I said, wow, really? Yeah, people come to the theater with open minds and hearts. They really want to trust. They want you to lead the way. And they give you so much room to do things that they would normally not let you do. And when I wrote it, I said, this is interesting. I'm hooked. So if you're hooked, and it's a truth, it's a sincerity of some sort, then there's a good chance it might resonate with others.
I think there's a high level of respect for your audience when you perform something that the concept or the premise or the idea actually excites you. You know, like it's so much more, and I know I use the word respect, but like for you to give an audience something that you do not think is entertaining, you know, but you do it almost because that's what you do, you know,
like,
that's
they'll
how,
like it, I'll get paid, then that's kind of rude.
And magicians toss it around, they go like, oh, you know, well, they don't see magic, we see magic, so, you know, like, we roll our eyes when someone says the ink on the card is heavy, but they're not going to, they've never seen magic, which is like, it's an insult to what people think is interesting, you know. Magic is no different than theater or movies or books or art or whatever, and it's like an artist being like, well, I'm just gonna sneeze on the painting, and what do they know, you know? Like they don't know anything about it. They're probably gonna think it's amazing anyways, right? So that's one of the things that I like that you said. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on was, which kind of reminded me of a conversation we had in the episode with Daniel Garcia, where he spoke about drawing inspiration from different resources, and he spoke about, you know, just looking at the design on the cover of a book and using that to almost give you some ideas about a trick. And what it made me think of it because you were sort of using the title, the heading of your show to unfold all of these different, emotions, things, results, like situations that actually excite you coming from that idea, and it's very different than throwing your bag of magic, all the magic tricks you got and being like, oh, who might like this? Like, oh, I'll say it like this, Like, that's a very different level of creating something new than it is to say, like, let's start with an idea, turn it into a solid name, take that name, unpack it into, some emotions, some feelings, situations, and then start, seeing what I can do to highlight those.
Exactly. So, let me do something that's a little weird. I've been in the last 5 years or so, I've been trying to write my magic book. And it's probably going to be done in 20 more years. I don't know. I'm very slow. It's got something to do with the fact that I barely speak English. But I want to read to you, it's a very raw essay that I wrote, if I can find it. Let me see. Here it is. Okay. It's a very raw essay that I wrote that touches on exactly what you said, and it presents some of the problems that we have as magicians. So I'll read it first, and then you guys will comment about this. So let me scroll, because it's about 70 pages so far. It's a little essay that needs a lot of... It's very raw, so keep that in mind. Here it is. Okay. So the title is like the formula, and I put like a copyright symbol next to it. And it says, who doesn't get sick of failure? How many times have you tried a new trick and people you performed it for did not respond as well as you hoped for? How much time have you wasted practicing and the results were unsatisfactory? I wanted to find a way to get better results and faster. To find the most effective ways to master the art of magic. A very complex and difficult art to master, I shall say. After years of research, trial and error, I came up with a formula. This is going to shorten your struggle in the journey of mastering magic by up to 80%. When the formula proved its effectiveness in my own work, I wanted to see if it could be beneficial to others. So I recruited 100 magicians of different levels. I gave them few tasks like practicing new tricks, routining a piece for the stage, coming up with new tricks, and only 50 of them were given the secrets of the formula. The results were stunning. The group who had the knowledge of the formula produced better methods, much more clever effects, and their sleight of hand was by far more advanced. That made me realize that we humans are so much alike that this formula will work for all people regardless of age, race, experience, and level of expertise. The formula I devised does break some myths about what was believed about mastering the art of magic, and I'm aware that at first you might doubt the effectiveness of this approach, but I'll ask you to blindly trust it and try it for yourself before you make any judgments. All you have to do is to follow the formula, and you're guaranteed to succeed as a magician. Then I write, I'm aware, but by now I'm sure I got your attention, and you might be wondering, how could you also get a grab of those secrets of the formula? The good news is that the formula is as simple as 13 steps. So wait, no more. Here is the entire formula in 13 simple steps. So number 1, articles that start with a series of questions to gain your empathy are usually written by crooks. Number 2, sentences that start with the word "it's all about the" are probably false. 3, there are many ways to achieve the same thing. 4, people have different ways of achieving goals. 5, keep a skeptical mind, always question everything, don't take anything for granted. 6, there is no right answer. 7, don't buy into any formulaic thinking. 8, most of the time there is no shortcut. 9, hard work is very rewarding. 10, if there's a formula, you should be the one creating it. 11, formulas are boring. And 13, lists that come in 13 steps are usually a cheap ripoff of a mentalism book. Man. The reason I'm reading this to you is because, yes, what you said about Garcia is wonderful. You look at the book and it inspires you, and boom, you have this. I looked at the title that inspired me to do this. Great. But what you need to be reminded of, that this might work for Danny Garcia, or this might work for me, or this might work for you. But it's not a formula. It's not like, and that's why it's so hard. Because if I could say, you want to be a good magician, do 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, you got it. The reason it's so difficult is because there is no recipe. You have to create the recipe that works for you, and that recipe will be tweaked, changed over time. It's never going to be the same. It's a real journey. So people say, oh, what books do you recommend? Read everything. Read anything that touches you. Find your way. Incorporate things from your hobbies. But these are just pieces of every person will be different, and it's very, very important to know it, that your journey is going to be very, very different than my journey. And I just saw Ricky J last night. It was amazing. Ricky J's journey is different. Everybody has a different, and that's what makes it interesting.
That's what makes it art, almost, right? Like, if it was completely formulaic, then it would be a science. And I think that
Exactly.
one of the most inspiring parts of magic is the fact that there is no right or wrong. I see a lot of magicians asking, what the next step for them is. And what's cool about magic is, like, not only can you craft whatever you want your next magic step to be, but in terms of making a magic show, like, you're sort of crafting your own reality, right? Like, like you said, the tools are all yours. It's just whatever you want to make your show about, and whatever you want to craft is totally open to the individual.
Exactly.
What it reminds me of is two things. The first is there's this internet marketing sort of guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, who I follow online, and in one of his speeches he says, there is no $14 ebook that will teach you how to be a millionaire. And I always thought that was so funny, because, how many books are there that tell people, read this book, and these are the 7 steps that you need to become this. These are the 18 steps you need to lose weight. This is the 3. And it's like, it's just not true. Those might be steps that get you there, but, nothing, you have to follow your own path. And it reminds me of one more thing, which is something that you mentioned up at Sorcerer Safari, which resonated with me a lot. Somebody asked you about why you did a certain effect that you did, some card effect or something, and what you said was, you're like, because I like it, because it really, for some weird reason, it really I really like it. It really resonates with me, so that's why I do it, and now I do it a lot, and that's what I do, and to me, that was game-changing, because at the time, I was struggling with, I was saying to myself, what does an audience like? How do you really reach an audience?
So let me ask you both a question, okay?
Sure.
This is a question that I've been asked maybe a few months ago by a comedian, and I thought it's a great question. He said, okay, if you were given a choice, and just each one of you just think to yourself, what would be your answer? If you were given the choice of A, you do a show and the audience loves it and enjoys every second of it, or you do a show and you enjoy every second of your show, but not so much the audience. So if you had to favor who enjoys it more, you or the audience, what would you choose?
It's really tough. See, for me,
I'm sorry, we're out of time. That'll be the end of the podcast today. Yeah.
For me, I honestly would say that I want the audience to appreciate it, but that's just because I'm very new into the professional magic world. Okay. So right now, I need to support a business. I need to try to stay afloat. But if it was just up to me, I'd rather be happy.
If you take money out of the equation and all that, you can choose either the audience really enjoys it or you really enjoy the show.
Does it mean that the other one doesn't? Like, if the audience enjoys it, it means I didn't?
They enjoy it much less than you.
Right.
But
so for me, I would say, as long as the audience does enjoy it somewhat, and it does mean that people like me, I would say I would rather me enjoy it. But if I have to if it really means that people will not like it, then I think it's more important to make sure that the audience enjoys it, because I feel that my show is for them more than it is for me.
It's also challenging because I feel like a lot of what makes me enjoy performing is the audience's approval and like getting the applause and having people come up to me and be like, yo, I really enjoyed what you did. Like that's the inspiring part, not so much the finding the card part.
So it's interesting because there is no wrong answer, by the way. It's not, a quiz. But for me, many years ago, I would say absolutely the crowd. But today,
That's what
I will, without hesitation, when he asked me the question, I said to him, absolutely me. And then I explained why I would say me.
And why is that?
Because if you do material, and it ties in with what you said before, if you do material that you like, and you talk about things that you want to talk about, it means you're doing a show that's very sincere and it's very truthful to who you are. Now, if the audience happens to like it, that's awesome. By the way, the chances are very high that they would like it because people, I think, react to sincerity and truth.
Right.
And you know who's doing it more than anyone else? It's David Blaine. And he was there too, and we, because I remember I said to him, I know what you're going to say, because I thought he's going to say me. And he did, at first he says the audience, and he says, no, me. And the reason he would say me is because, think about it. David Blaine has held his breath for 17-something minutes underwater. He sat in a box for 40 days, okay? With no food. He froze himself in a block of ice. He really did stuff that,
You can't think he's doing that for other people.
No. So bear with me. He's doing all of this stuff, correct? And people think it's fake. People think he's cheating. But he's absolutely doing it. Like I spoke to a friend of mine, about the show, the last special. That says, okay, but the frogs, it's fake, correct?
No.
And I said, no, it's not fake. But no, but the bullet catch is fake, correct? And I said, no, it's
again.
not. So look, the guy is doing stuff that is really, really, really dangerous, really difficult. And in truth, this is my opinion, okay? It's not David's opinion. My opinion is David is doing it for himself because it's interesting to him. And that's his truth. Because think about it, he could have faked it and it would look just as good. Many people have faked it in the past, and and people loved it. It was good. But David wants it to be real because he cares about it. He cares about it being real. So again, it's an interesting idea. But if this is an extreme, but if your show, if a bunch of card tricks that you do, if they're based on material that you like, I don't know why I like the ambitious card. I don't know why I like any card, any number. Or I like this or I like that. You like it, and you don't know why. You follow it and you keep investigating and do it. People will somehow mysteriously feel it and say, I don't know why, but this magician is making me feel something.
Yeah, that's generally what we want as magicians, I think, is not necessarily to fool people, but to get people feeling or to act almost provocatively, like get them thinking about not necessarily the method, but just, I don't know, questioning their own nature.
Well, I think I want them to feel, and I think what you're saying about sincerity and about making sure that the things that you do resonate with you is, one of the ways that you can be sure that your audience, like, think about when you have a conversation with someone, when you're passionate about something and empathetic and they can hear it in your voice and see it in your face and your tonality, how much more receptive are they to what you're saying versus if you're saying it matter-of-factly, like you're trying to win an argument or something. So the way that you're saying it about being sincere really resonates with me because I think about it in terms of conversation and what would move someone. And what you said about David Blaine, who knows about how edited like how editing changes what I'm about to say from the recent special, but you see him like in the moment with the hanger thing, with the swallowing the hanger, before it, he says like, we got to get ourselves a sword swallower, you know? And I don't know, but what that says to me is that he's got a goal in mind, and he's like, we got to get there, right? And if someone says to him like, well, you're going to have to shove this down your throat, he's like, okay, I guess we're looking for a sword swallower then, right? And it's like, you think about how an engineer or how somebody leading a team would solve problems. It's just like that, right? They're like, I don't know how to do this accounting. We better find an accountant that knows all about this sort of thing, right? So it really rings true that he's doing it for himself, and he's doing it, you know, he's trying to get to his own completion. And it reminds me of, you know, at the beginning when you were talking about tools, like the house, the mansion or the shack, it actually doesn't hold place in the tools. It holds place in your brain. The tools allow it to come to fruition. You know, like you speak the language of tools to allow you to move something from your brain to the real world. The same as like if you imagine an instrument, you know, like your fingers do not know how to play the instrument. Your brain knows how to play the instrument. Your fingers are the tools that you've, you know, use to get to that goal. And I think it's the same thing in magic, exactly what you're saying, you know? Like, the tools are all around us, but having goals, having wants, having things that you enjoy, even if you don't have a reason for why you enjoy it, is going to, you know, all that sincerity, all that truth will come through instead of building someone else's shack.
Yeah, for sure. It's, again, the reason it's so hard to construct a show or to make people care for magic is because it really is very complex. Mm-hmm. And most magicians need to be good at many, many things. Mm-hmm. So if I'm an actor, you know, I don't need to write my lines. I'm most likely going to be directed, and the director is going to say, you know what, give it to me a little slower. Mm-hmm. Oh, can you do it more minimal? I want you to think of like as an actor, I'm his tool. Mm-hmm. The director is going to use me as one of his, you know, marionettes, and my job is to give the best performance I can. And I'm not taking anything away from actors. I love actors. They're, you know, it's a very tough thing to do very, very well. There are only a few great Hollywood movie stars right now, in my opinion. But the point is, he doesn't need to write his lines. He doesn't need to light himself. He doesn't need to do any of that. We as magicians, we need to, well, it depends if you buy the trick or not, but if you invent your own magic, you have to invent the magic. You have to build a prop, maybe. So you have to do the craftsmanship. You have to script it. You have to direct yourself, and then critique yourself. You have to do so much stuff.
Yeah.
Edit it and then sell the show.
Yeah, and that's not even all of it. I mean, you have to think about how it looks on stage. You have to plan. Like, there's just so many different details to look at.
Exactly. You need to be good at public speaking. You need to be good as a communicator. How do you communicate your thoughts or ideas to others? You know, if somebody's interesting without cards, it's already, you know, half the battle, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, a few minutes ago, I was just thinking, I had the thought of, like, if I could have the perfect show, it would be a show that I did magic in, but I totally could just talk through and not do any tricks and have people still care. Yeah,
or off stage, forget the stage. If you're interesting off stage, if you know, you talk to a person, I don't know, you meet somebody on the train, and this guy is so interesting. Like, you don't know why, but I want to listen to this guy. Everything he says makes sense to me, or I don't know. He's just very good at telling me this information, whatever he's talking about. That's already making a good performer, correct? Mm-hmm. And how many times have we seen people who are very interesting off stage, but the moment you give them a mic, they're just not interesting?
Yeah, there's definitely both sides.
You have to, and you know, it's like with layman, when I'm shooting now a promo for my new trick, Gypsy Queen. So I go and do magic, you know, David Blaine style, and I have, the moment they see the camera, people are already different. Mm-hmm. They don't act the same. So we have all these tricks and bits and things to make him not realize there's a camera. Like, but it's up to me as a performer to make them forget about the camera. So, but we are the same. We also act different. Once somebody puts a camera on you, or now that we're being recorded, maybe we speak a little differently. Maybe we communicate a little differently than if you just call me and we spoke. You know, like as friends, and we knew that nobody's going to listen to it. It's just us. It's not being recorded. This is not going to be archived for the rest of our lives. You know, maybe that would change something. Correct? So that's another thing. Once you're on stage and you realize people are watching you, you immediately become a slightly different person.
For sure, yeah.
And so how do, obviously it's like a loaded question, but how do you bring out the real you on stage? You know, like we've sort of both said that, you know, someone who's interesting off stage is really likely to be interesting on stage. But we've also said that we've all met people who are like amazingly interesting off stage and then they go on stage and it doesn't happen. So how do you bring that, you know, that excitement, that sincerity onto the stage? Is it just, you know, practice and being less nervous that it's a different world up there, or is there something more?
So the real answer is I have no idea. The fake answer or the pretentious answer is I don't know. It's a psychological process. You know, it's like it's a journey where you start to understand who you are and what makes you tick and what do you feel. You know, you have to break it down. Okay, I go on stage. Here's something that I've learned. I know it. I always know it, but it's something that's very interesting to me. Like, you know, we're very motivated by compliments, correct?
Yeah.
Like we do a show and somebody comes, "Oh, you're amazing! Wow, 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 wow! It's really great. You're the best I've ever seen." And it could make your day. You can glow.
Like your week.
Maybe weeks, maybe a day, maybe an hour. Who knows? Or somebody you can hear, I don't know, you'd be in the bathroom and say, "Oh, did you see that magician? He was awful. Wow, he was terrible." And that can ruin your day. That can ruin, you know, your self-esteem. You can say, "Oh, I'm not good. Oh my God." Or just hate the guy. What an asshole. He has no taste, whatever, you know? Whatever route you want to choose. And my resolution is you should not take his offensive comments like that at all. They should not affect you whatsoever. But it's easily said, correct?
Yeah.
But I think the solution is when somebody gives you a compliment, you shouldn't take it seriously either.
Right.
Totally. Okay.
A compliment is absolutely, you know, not relevant. I mean, it's relevant, but it's not. It shouldn't make your week. It shouldn't be the reason you think you're good or you're up to something. The only thing that counts is what do you think of yourself. So if you can develop a sensibility where you look at a video of yourself or just feeling your show and you say, "You know, I had a good show tonight," and you can tell good from bad, you're your best critic. You know, critics will come anyway. You know, even when you don't welcome them, the critics will come. They will show up. They will knock on your door. They'll open and say, "Hey, I have to tell what I think of your show." You don't even need to invite them. They will come. But the greatest critic you can have is absolutely you, because you really know. You know, when you do a good trick and people really flipping, you did something right.
Yeah.
And if you can understand what you did well and what you didn't do well, then you're on your way to becoming better. Now, it's important to surround yourself, of course, with good magicians. Because, you know, there's some things, you know, a real pro will see that you can't. But then it comes to you again. Because I don't want to contradict myself. So if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I watched your show, and I want to tell you that, you know, if you only did this and that differently, I think it would be better." Then the critic in you comes in again and says, "Okay, what this guy told me makes sense to me. I agree with him." And now it's not a matter of compliment or an insult. It's just a matter of I just get good critique and I can recognize it's good critique.
Right.
Because we get a lot of critique. When do we know it's good? It's about you to develop this judgment and sensibility to know
Right.
that you just received gold. Somebody just gave you a great idea and you know it. And if you don't do that, if you're not capable of recognizing good critique, whether it's yours or somebody else's, then you'll never grow. You'll never grow. Same thing for the cocky guy who thinks, I nailed it, I'm the greatest magician alive. You know, he lost his judgment. He cannot recognize good or bad anymore because he's biased. He's just biased. I'm great. I'm amazing. I'm a master. And by thinking that way, he basically closed the door to improve.
And I like the thought of, you know, we mentioned, you know, the show being almost for yourself, which is perfectly in line with saying that it doesn't really matter what other people think, whether they like it or whether they don't like it or whatever the case may be. But I sort of like the process of, you know, if you get a nugget that might end up being some good advice or bad advice, whatever it is, you know, it has to filter through you first. You know, it's not just you going, oh, Aussie told me that this was wrong with my show, I have to change it. It's not like that. It's like, Aussie told me this was wrong with my show. Let me evaluate what he said. Let me, you know, he probably brought up something that makes sense. Maybe his solution wasn't the right one, but maybe he was right about the fact that what I was doing was not right. You know what I mean? Like using yourself, making sure that you really are a filter to what people say to you, even if they are magicians that, you know, you look up to and that you know, like you think to yourself like, if I could perform the way that they perform, so and so and so and so, and then they give you advice, you still need to run it through your own personal
filters.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're never gonna be, you know, a David Copperfield or a Chris Kenner or whoever, right? You're gonna be you at the end of the day, and I guess.
And that's all you want to be. You don't want to be anyone else, because if you are somebody else,
you're not going to be as good at it as they are, that's for sure.
60 or 70 and you reflect back on your life and you say, what have I accomplished? Okay, I stole this trick from this guy. I stole these gags from another guy. I did this. And, you know, that's a hack. You know, it's something I've heard in London. Somebody, I feel bad I don't remember his name, but somebody gave a great lecture on comedy in London. And he says, what is a hack? And one of his definitions was beautiful. He says, a hack is a state of mind. So a hack is not just somebody who steals lines and copies tricks and he does the most common popular tricks because it works. It's a set of mind. It's a guy who doesn't strive to be original, doesn't want to say something, no depth to him whatsoever. It's a guy who's just, you know, oh, this is a good trick, I should buy it and do it, you know. And he hears
this works, those lines work.
Exactly.
Recently, someone said to me, they said, "Wow, I love that trick. I'm gonna do it." Okay.
No,
sure.
And by the way, that's legit too, you know. But I always ask, you know, here's something that it just happens to me naturally, and I don't know why. I look at a trick that I know is great, and I say, wow, I really like this trick. There's something about the aesthetics of this trick that I like. And then I feel guilty. I feel guilty because I say, what can I contribute to this trick? What can I add to this that has my fingerprints all over it? And it's, you know, there's a lot of tricks that people, my friends, have seen me do, and they go, wow, you should publish this trick. And I say to them, you know what? I haven't changed enough about it to call it my own. It's too much. It's too close to what it was from the beginning. So, you know, everything that I've ever published was really something that I feel like I significantly changed. You know, like if I mention one of my creations, double exposure is based on an ingenious idea by Michael Weber. Michael Weber definitely inspired me. It's a trick that he had called half a chick on a photocopier, and it's in one of his lecture notes that are probably out of print and goes for thousands of dollars on eBay. I don't know, but but I do have them, and Weber inspired me to think about. There's something about that trick that I really liked, and then I said, you know what, a photocopier is something that, you know, was very popular, but you see it less and less. So also, how do I make the trick more accessible? Oh, I can use a phone. Okay, it requires a special deck. I don't want to carry a special deck. How can? And by the way, I dwelled with that idea for about 2 years, and had many versions. And after 2 years, I said, "Wow, this is a different trick. This is enough of a different trick that I can publish." And of course, I still owe Weber the credit and the gratitude for inspiring me. Mm-hmm. But I felt like I've changed enough to call it my own. And I even, every time I release something and I feel it's inspired, I always call these people and I say, are you okay with me publishing? Here's what I've done with the trick. Is it okay? And, Weber said, yeah, for sure, go ahead. And to me, I don't know how we got on this trend, but
you're talking about hacks, like the hack mindset.
Yeah, so for me, so
this is the counter side to it.
Yeah, and exactly. So this is the kind of the guilt I have with, there are many good tricks I can take and just put them in my act, and they're wonderful.
Yeah.
But I don't know why it's just me. I feel guilty doing that because I feel like I need to do a little bit of work on it. So I read the history on it. Who invented it? What are the influences? What the variations are out there? What do I like about the trick? And what can I improve to suit me, my style? I wanted it to be a normal deck. I wanted it to be, with phones. I wanted it to be a camera. I wanted them to keep the photo. And those are the things I start to like. And I didn't do it in a formulaic way. I'm just now backwards I can do it. But I unconsciously did all of these calculations, for the lack of a better word, in my mind to come up with this trick.
Well, the thing is you grow obsessed. You grow obsessed with a topic.
Yeah. Obsession is definitely it's something I've been accused of by close friends and partners, ex-partners mainly. Obsession is a wonderful word, and it could be a negative too, correct?
Yeah.
But it's really sometimes I feel like you just have to be obsessed about magic, about the art, about what you do. Take it seriously, read, learn, have this appetite to know more. Always think of yourself as a beginner, and realize you just know a fraction about magic. And if you think you know and you're it's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that I just see in almost every magician I know, is that sort of underlying ability to obsess, and not just about magic. It's like we're always interested in learning about new topics and just really honing in on one idea. It could be physical, like a skill we're learning, or it could just be a conceptual bit of philosophy. But that's one of the things I admire and respect about our community, is the fact that most of us are very knowledge and understanding driven.
I agree with you, with the exception of the word many. There's a nice amount of people who are doing great magic, and but to go back to the 90% formula, 90% of everything is shit. And it's true. It's true for magic. It's true for any other profession in the world. It's true for human beings. People are lazy. People want shortcuts. People want the formulas. Some people do it for the wrong reasons. They want the rewards, the money, the fame, getting laid. Everybody wants something.
Yeah, magic will do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people, if it wasn't for magic, that would have been virgins.
That's true. That's a good point.
And it's okay.
No need to rub it in, Ozzy.
No. Listen, okay. I'm at fault just as much, but I think I want to believe that I do magic for greater reasons. Mm-hmm. And again, it's very easy to be lazy. I mean, and because by the way, it's very easy to be a magician. It's very easy to be even a working magician. If I give you an invisible deck, a folding quarter, pen through bill, book. Yeah, a handy 500. Maybe that's a little too skillful, but
it's a lot of work.
There's a handful of tricks that require very little skill, correct, and practice. Mm-hmm. I can teach them to you in maybe a couple of hours, a week. You're a master, and you can go and do those for the rest of your life, and you'll make a living. It's easy. And by the way, for audiences, if they see somebody do the invisible deck, which is a great trick, by the way,
They can't believe it.
they can't believe it. And for them, this guy is a master sleight of hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a weird thing, and Juan talks about this. It's a mystery how laymen actually do know the difference, but they can't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
If they see a master sleight of hand versus somebody who just has a gimmick deck, they don't know why, but they sense that something about this guy is different. They can sense it.
That's really interesting.
And I think it's about what we've been talking about, which is like the passion and the obsession and the love of what you're doing on stage. You know, like when you do a trick that's 100 years old that you learned a week ago, that you're working on you just kind of wrote, you didn't even write a script. You kind of wrote some patter where you know kind of a little bit what you're talking about, and then you do it. Like, who is going to be moved by that performance, you know? Like, who is going to feel incredibly powerful emotions when you're not? You know, you're just trying to, you know, like you said, in performance mode. You're trying to, like, get through the thing almost. Yeah. So I think that probably is a factor as to why people can see it and feel it. Because, you know, especially you see an effect that a magician has spent 10, 15 years creating. Part of the reason that you get such a big response from the audience is not because they're necessarily even the best person in the world to perform that effect in terms of method-wise, you know? They might just have the most oomph in it, you know? The most heart and soul and the most, you know, the moments that they got have unfolded over years, and just the little things that come out of that, out of the love of a trick or a moment or something, is what I think shines through.
Indeed.
Yeah. Also, going to the whole gimmicked versus ungimmicked thing, I think it's kind of neat that, like, I never thought about it. Like, I always knew that the spectators understood that there was a difference, but I never was like, you know what, they actually can't put words to what it is.
I don't know.
You know
I don't know that the spectators know the difference between gimmicked and ungimmicked. I just
100% they do. If you're doing a trick and you literally don't move your hands versus you have to shuffle the cards 6 times before the card gets reversed, then there's a difference.
In that situation,
I might, if I may interject, I agree and disagree with those statements. So here, again, I'm going back to my book in progress, and it's just accumulation of thoughts and things that I thought were worthy. And now I need to find it again. So let's see if I can find it. I wrote a little paragraph. It's not even an essay. It's just a little paragraph about gimmicks, and what do I think of them. So let's see if I can actually find this. Shit, the word gimmick comes 21 times. I'll find it. Hold on. So gimmick 6. Okay.
we can edit out this blank space, so don't worry about.
Sure. No.
Don't worry about entertaining us while you search.
I think I found it. Yeah. So this is, you know, I wrote a little intro to Akon.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote this piece. I wrote, I'm not sure what the first impression that drew my attention and devotion to this plot. I'm talking about Akon, but I do remember sitting in my basement apartment on 88th Street and First Avenue, my least liked apartment, frequently visited by cockroaches and mice, and I knew that I wanted to achieve the effect with a regular deck of cards. A requirement that I normally stick to as much as I can. I only resort to the use of gimmicks and secret devices when I exhausted all the possible non-gimmicked methods I could find. And once I declare defeat, I would start exploring other ways at achieving the effect I desire, even if it requires using gimmicks. In general, I think that using gimmicks could be used with great success. I also realized that sometimes with the use of gimmicks, you could achieve results that could not be achieved with the use of sleight of hand and psychology solely. But for the sake of argument, I would say that the consideration of gimmicks at the early stages of developing a new trick could prevent you from discovering new non-gimmick methods.
Mm-hmm.
So in a nutshell, I'm trying to say, look, one of my greatest inspirations in magic is Tommy Wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And Tommy was a great sleight of hand artist. He was a great magician. He was also a great builder of gimmicks. And a lot of his tricks required gimmicks. But I think he did what I was trying to talk about here. He used the gimmicks when they're really necessary.
Mm-hmm.
When really you could not achieve the effect without them. So that's what I'm trying to talk about, is like when you really you are defeated, that's it. I can't find a way to make this trick without, I don't know, a double backer or without a sticky card.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you should use them. And in the back of your mind, keep thinking about how you can avoid those gimmicks. And a lot of my tricks, by the way, start with heavily gimmicked, and then down the line I found ways to simplify them and then remove the gimmick altogether.
And one of the things... Go ahead.
No, but I think gimmicks, deserve respect, and they have a great place when they're necessary. But if the gimmick is being used because you don't want to learn how to do a pass, or you don't want to learn how to call cards, then you're not. And the pass would have been better, or the call would have been better than the gimmick. Then you should only favor one thing. What will make the trick better? Is a sleight of hand going to make the trick better, or is it going to be a gimmick? If the answer is gimmick, use a gimmick. If the answer is sleight of hand, then go ahead and put the time and learn a sleight of hand.
That's my thought on it, but more so, one of the things to just highlight based on the way that you're talking about this is it's all in the name of getting the trick to be better, and getting the effect to be as you want it, which is something that, part of that 90% of magicians, and even I'm at fault for this, and I've been trying to change it more and more, is, instead of being stuck on an effect and trying to make it better and better and better, you kind of have an effect that you like and you're okay with it, and it's the endless, editing of an effect and making it better and seeing what you can do and accessing all your tools and thinking and almost brewing on an effect over days and weeks while other things enter your brain as, to help you as solutions and stuff like that forward along this journey. And I just wanted to highlight that, you're going at this journey effect first. Like, what would be a really cool thing? How could this be really, really cool? And the method is in order to get that to happen, which not all magicians build that way. And I think that it does service to the point of, being obsessed, loving what you do, digging deeper, and all of those things that we've touched on.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Awesome. So we are rounding about the end of the episode. One of the things that we do at the end of the episode, because, we chat for about an hour and it's very hard to distill some great information, is we go through one at a time and we mention something that came out of the episode that resonated with us in any way. Either something that you said or you heard or anything like that. So for me, I'll just start by saying I have been super interested in the way that you've been talking about being obsessed. I think we sort of only got, pulled that word out like 3/4 through, but I think that it really does help highlight all of the things that we've been talking about. Talking about not being a hack, doing your own things, working on your own material, making a show that resonates with people, and all that different stuff has to do with making sure that it resonates with yourself and you putting in the hours and love and care and everything to make something what you want. So I think that's like a really, really big take-home point that is going to resonate with me. Tyler, what about you?
Well, I'll second what you just said, but I was blown away when you it was just one little small point you said early in the episode, but I was really blown away by the idea of people come to be their best at the theater. They come to dress up and they come to, participate and get involved, and the idea of the level of trust the audience is putting in you to guide them through their night of, mystery it's I don't know. I see it as more of a serious thing now, and I want to keep my audience in mind a little bit But at the same time, I was also inspired by the idea that you have to perform for you and figure out what your persona is going to be as a magician and what you want. So it's sort of like a fine balance that I have to think about now. So that's what I'm going to think about for the next month or so.
And to add to that, it's not, when you say I'm doing the magic show for me, you're not being selfish. People come to the theater to see a revelation of what you have to offer. Mm-hmm. And the more sincere you are, you're giving them a better performance by stripping and showing them the true you. So if you stick to the true you, you're actually doing them a favor.
You're allowing them to come see you in theater,
exactly.
Which is what they wanted.
Exactly. You're not a crowd pleaser. You don't say, oh, they want to see this, I'll do fire, and you want animals? Okay, I'll put some birds. Okay, What else do they want? They want to see some nude? Okay, I'll take my clothes off. I'm going to work, on my abs, make sure I have six-pack. You're not catering to what is popular or in demand right now. If somebody says to you, oh, I have a show for you, but they want to see more mentalism. So you say, okay, I'll become a mentalist. Yeah. But you're not a mentalist. You want to be a magician. Or they say, can you add a little bit of cardistry into your act? Because it's really popular. Yeah. It's really catching up now. People want to see that. So, okay, so I'm going to go and learn that. No, you do it only if you really like it. Mm-hmm. You do it if really that's something you want to do.
Exactly. If learning that sort of thing is something for you. And Asi, is there anything from this episode, either that you said or that came out of conversation, that you think is of the utmost importance, or something for people to take home?
My favorite part was when you guys at the beginning were flattering me and giving me compliments.
Oh, shucks.
That was beautiful.
That was
beautiful.
A great part.
Every word, beautiful. I really enjoy talking about magic in general, and I'll say this: I do a fair amount of teaching. I teach magic, either in workshops or in conventions and so forth. And every time I do that, I feel like I'm the person who've learned the most.
For sure.
About magic. So every time you guys ask me questions and you force me to verbalize, you basically help me realize what I'm doing that might be good or bad.
Right.
By making me aware of those questions. Because it's all about asking those questions that will give you the chance to come up with an answer. So to me, just this conversation makes me say, oh, that's very interesting, because even though this information might be in me because of 23 or something years of doing magic, it's not so obvious, because it's accumulated knowledge that it's stored in you because you experienced it, but you never give it an outlet or a voice. You never really put it into, okay, this is what I feel. So I'm always grateful, to do those things, because I feel like I learned from this more than anyone else, maybe.
Maybe, who knows? But I think that's really awesome. And you've got probably, I don't know, at least 3-4 million magicians listening right now. Is there anything that you...
Wow.
Anything,
I
yeah.
did not know there's 3-4 million magicians in the world.
Yeah, then they're all tuning in. All right now.
Okay.
It's crazy. Is there anything that you want to tell them? A PSA, people have said anything from words of wisdom to words of some negative words, anything that you want to say now that you've got.
I will say things, maybe you need to trim it because it's going to be a slightly long answer.
It's actually the first half of my book.
Exactly.
Here
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I'll say this. I will say this. There are millions of movies, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Millions of movies. And 90% of them, according to that formula, suck, correct? Mm-hmm. So only 10% of the millions of movies are great. Mm-hmm. But 10% of millions, it's thousands and thousands of movies, correct? Mm-hmm. Now, how many magic shows or opportunities people have to see magic? It's under 100, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But let's be generous and say it's 100. 10% of 100 is 10. Only 10. So it means that there's 90 sucky opportunities for people to see bad magic.
Right.
So the ratio is really bad. So I would say to everyone, and this is goes along with what Ricky Chase says, if you want to rescue the reputation of magic, you can do it by doing good magic. So take the art seriously and realize that the reputation of magic as an art form is in your hands. And if you did one good trick to somebody in a party, you made one person think highly of magic because of that trick. So take it seriously and realize there's some sort of responsibility, not to make you too nervous, but some sort of responsibility when you do magic. You want people to say, this guy was a great magician, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? I love magic. Magic is a great art form.
I think that's
awesome.
Awesome
That's
advice,
awesome
and
little
especially
tidbit.
Magicians. They love walking around and saying shitty things about magic. They love to do it. They talk negatively about the way magic is, the way that guy is, the way magic on the internet, the way that it is. Everyone speaks negatively, but I like the idea of take it into your own hands. Do some great magic. Stop bitching. Do something awesome.
Think about how inspiring that would be if after a show, like if you're a musician, after a show you walked out onto backstage and one of your fans was like, "Yo, that show made me like music." Like that'd be crazy.
and by the way, there's a lot of shitty music out there.
Of course, you could leave a show and be like, "That made me hate music."
The proportions are more reasonable because the proportions are more reasonable. You have so much good music because it's millions and millions and millions of creators in music and in concerts, and from those 10%, the 10% is a lot of good shows, a lot. You can really, and also you have Rotten Tomatoes. You can really choose a good movie, a good and you can really stay away from the bad. Imagine Magic had Rotten Tomatoes. That would be
Oh God,
that'd be frightening.
Magician.org. No, thank you.
Anyways, Asi, thank you so much for everything. Your great words and a lot of advice to work with and mull over. Where can people find you on the big ol' internet?
Where they can find me? Where?
On the internet, online.
Google me.
I mean, do you want people following you on social media, or
I'm not big on social media and stuff. Okay. I do tend to post things that I find interesting, either about others or myself. And on Instagram, if people want to follow me on Instagram, I'm on it. Every now and then I post a really cool photo. So if they want to do that, it's Asi Wind on Instagram.
And of course, staying tuned for your upcoming trick release.
That's coming soon. Yeah.
Very soon. Awesome. Anyways, that's it. Thank you so much for everything, for the great conversation. And thank you everyone who's been listening in, who listened this long. When you listen to an episode like this, all the way through, of a whole bunch of magicians sitting around blabbing about the love of magic, and you really have to love it. You really have to care about it. So
I would stop midway for sure.
In one of our episodes near the end, we're like, who is listening to this really? Who made it this far? My goodness. So anyways, thank you, and thank everyone at home, and we'll see you guys later. Hope that you liked episode 39 of Discourse in Magic. Before you go, I want to ask one tiny favor. Take a moment right now and think about somebody who you think needs to hear this episode. Whether they need to hear it because they're on the right track, or they need to hear it because you feel that they need to put more passion into what they are producing on stage or off stage. Please share it with them. I'm not picky about how. We are on every social media platform. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. And I don't care how you do it. You can share them, you can tag them, you can do whatever you want. You can even call them up in person or send them an email. I don't care. I just want this message to be spread with as many magicians as we can possibly reach, because I think it is so important. So please share this with people who you think would get a real kick out of it. And in return for doing that, we will continue to make episodes. So I figure that's an easy trade-off. All you have to do is tag someone or share it or tell someone or something like that. And then if you do that, then you will see an episode 40 next week. So thank you so much, and we will see you, hopefully, if you share it with people, on episode 40. Did I sound too much like Rick Lax telling you that things would happen based on your sharing? Whatever. Do it anyway.